Chapter 105, Sniper Power 2/2. Translator, Strivon. I think the kid's last name is Zhu. He's probably the disciple of that martial arts master. He sure has guts. Zhang Yingying failed to protect Luo Nan on the night at Water Village pub, but this young man had made up for her mistake. She had a rather deep impression of him. Bamboo Pole expressed his approval as well, but he soon added, "Isn't he a bit hot-headed? He's also lacking in combat experience. He's not even able to lift his head due to the suppressive fire on him." "Zhang Yingying, go support him," ordered He Yuan directly. Zhang Yingying shrugged. "Sorry, you and I don't have that great of a relationship." Those words fell on deaf ears as He Yuan continued to give orders. Upon destroying the sniper point, advance counterclockwise along the perimeter and clear out all opposing personnel carrying loaded weapons. There is no need to pay attention to the enemies who are purely ability users. Bamboo Pole will coordinate with you. Hello. He Yuan no longer paid attention to Zhang Yingying. She gave out order after order. Bamboo Pole, first establish a communications link for White Salt. Give her secondary level rights to the encrypted channel, and then mark out all enemy personnel carrying loaded weapons. Do your best to get it all on video for archiving purposes. Bamboo Pole understood He Yuan's intentions. What a good plan. The city government and the military have just pointed their long-ranged weaponry over here. They are using weapons of high destructive power as a warning to all parties. We are all good citizens of the city, right? Let's make it clear. The communications link with Bai Xinyan was established while Bamboo Pole was talking. Bai Xinyan's wristband then vibrated, and a large quantity of information came flooding into her wristband. Bai Xinyan laughed as she conscientiously combed through the information with a lowered head. At the same time, she gave Zhang Yingying a wave with her other hand. This young lady was full of discontent, but she could only look towards the sky and roll her eyes before turning stealthily to go to the location indicated by Bamboo Pole. He Yuan's manner of speaking grew a bit politer as she said, "White Salt, you're in charge of getting your patient, Mr. Nan, out of there. Is that all right?" Bai Xinyan responded with all smiles. "It is a doctor's duty to help the dying and save the injured. However, are you sure that Fairchild would like us getting involved?" He Yuan returned to a manner of speaking that was completely cold. "This has nothing to do with him." After a moment's pause, He Yuan spoke to Bamboo Pole. "Help me establish another communications line." The two sniper points were no longer suitable locations, resulting in the Knights of Equity having a lot of their follow-up tactics forcibly severed. It was not an easy task to find a suitable location within the complicated interior of the amusement center. An unusual moment of peace actually appeared within the ramshackled room. There were only 4 survivors inside, and the one who did not understand the situation the most was likely Zhu Weilan. In any case, this diligent police officer had the most misgivings right now. His gaze and his equipment scanned from the other 3 people within the room and his unconscious underlings outside. The concentrated wave of fire just now had mainly targeted the interior of the room. The special police outside had protection with their exoskeleton armor, and their vital signs were relatively stable at this time. All of this information appeared in his command data. Zhu Weilan ought to be happy, but when he saw the battered body of Guo Zhu and the 2 regular police officers who were too late to be saved, his emotions grew complicated and he could not calm down. In the end, his gaze fell to the center of the room, resting upon the white-gowned man who had been calm all this time. This was the man who had brought upon these series of disaster, yet this man viewed them as if they were nothing. The concentrated shrapnel was merely the drizzle of an autumn's night from this man's perspective. The drizzle touched his body with its moisture, but he did not get wet. This kind of monster should not exist in the ordinary world of man. This monster, with his immense pressure, stood on a slope that was levels high above. He could run over the bewildered and the weak like a flood and cause terrifying injuries. It was rare for Zhu Weilan to be emotional, but at this time, a static noise came through his transmitter. A voice containing hesitation emerged out from it. "We can patch the comms this way. It can't be that easy to break into the data link of the police, right?" Though the radio distance was far and the signal was intermittent, Zhu Weilan was able to tell who it was without a doubt. His heart instantly clenched up. "Lister, is that you?" "Hello, Dad, are you really okay? I'm with my friend Nanster right now. Everything is fine." On the other side of the call, Zhu Lei did his best to make his voice appear calm. However, there was a problem. A father knows his son the best. Zhu Weilan was able to sense and infer things from the minute sounds of breathing from his son. More so, there was a gaping hole in his son's faux words that everything is fine, and this hole was clearly placed in front of him. Zhu Weilan's mind spun as he seethed with anger. "You entered the site. Are you counting on your three-legged cat martial arts? I never should have sent you to that dojo in the first place. Don't you know what kind of situation this place is in right now?" However, how could it possible for Zhu Weilan to worry about other things in this moment of desperation? His roaring voice rushed out from his armor and resounded within the ruined room. Separated by a distance of several hundred meters, Zhu Lei could only shrink back as his old man lectured him in a torrent of abuse. Next to Zhu Lei, Zhang Yingying laughed in great delight. It did not matter who was out of luck, she would always find pleasure in it. "Zhu Lei, are you listening to me? Get the F***K out of here right now." Zhu Weilan's roars swept and spilled out all around the broken room. Not even an echo was produced. However, Luo Nan, who had been pressed to the ground by cat eyes, twitched twice with his eyelids. He then opened his eyes. "Oh, Lister's here now. You're awake." Cat Eyes was a bit astonished. "I thought you were going to play dead until the situation is over." "Playing dead?" Cat Eyes was obviously mocking him. Luo Nan could only laugh in response, but soon he discovered that he and Cat Eyes were lying shoulder to shoulder next to each other. They were extremely close enough to smell each other's breaths. It was more or less embarrassing. Luo Nan turned over and sat up. Just this one movement caused fine sounds to creak from the flesh and bones of his entire body. His body was stiff, but soon it relaxed. He stretched his neck, his expression rather subtle. Cat Eyes remained prone on the ground. She asked with a frown, "Hello, aren't you scared of being blasted in the head by a gun?" "They haven't been cleared out yet. The remaining long-distance snipers are withdrawing." Cat Eyes felt that their current positions were far too awkward. Upon hearing Luo Nan's irrefutable words and pondering for a moment, she just simply sprung up and shot a cold eye at Luo Nan. "Do you know the situation?" "Generally," said Luo Nan freely, his gaze never leaving Zhu Weilan, who was to the side. This father was angry to the point of stomping his feet. No matter how calm and steady this Uncle Zhu was, he too would have this sort of appearance when seeing his child in danger. Viewing such interactions was really quite interesting. "You're really taking things leisurely." Cat Eyes' furrowed brows furrowed even tighter. Luo Nan really gave off this sort of change upon awakening. It seemed that his characteristic of being a nut job had strengthened. At any time, he could sink into trains of thought that outsiders had no chance of understanding. The problem was, though you may be a nut job, not everyone else was a mad believer like Fairchild. The instant Cat Eyes thought this, the mad believer Fairchild finally made a move after standing calmly all this time. He leaned and walked 2 steps, attracting everyone's gazes in an instant. Even Zhu Weilan put lecturing his child on pause when he saw this. He watched Fairchild with rapt attention. The 3 multifunction robots, which Fairchild had trampled out of operation, blocked the front of Fairchild. By now, these robots had already been baptized by the hail of special bullets. They were complete scrap now, and even their system's self-test function had been stalled. Chapter 106, Words of Krait, Part 1-2. Translator, Strivon. Fairchild stood in front of the 3 piles of scrap, sweeping his gaze across them. The partially warped metal structures then seemed to be sliced by an incorporeal blade. They split one by one. When the 3 piles of scraps crumbled apart, the figure of a person was unexpectedly shown. It was Huang Bingzhen. While this brother was unconscious, he had been pressed down by the stretcher and blocked by the robots. There had been absolutely no trace of his existence. He had actually survived the hailfire of bullets just now. He was just injured by the shrapnel. He just so happened to wake up from the pain at this time, and he started to moan for help. Fairchild reached out his hand. Of course, this action had nothing to do with Huang Bingzhen. In the next moment, a metal box shot up noiselessly among the pile of metal components and fell into Fairchild's hand. Is that the storage unit containing the human-faced arachnid? Cat Eyes' gaze scanned the metal box. It was hard for her to correlate the image of that arachnid with this box. The dead and damned Guo Ju had been quite detailed in describing the course of events during his confession to Fairchild. Cat Eyes, with her long-range perception, naturally did not miss it. Stowed away in that metal box was the barest core of the object that sparked today's events. It was the raw source and key information that could construct the human-faced arachnid. All one needed was to use a special method of reconstruction with this box, and a human-faced arachnid would pop out of it in minutes. Even if this arachnid was an imitation, it could pass as the genuine article and possessed formidable might and capabilities. The display before Fairchild had been like a farce, because the pilot of this human-faced arachnid had been Huang Bingzhen. Huang Bingzhen was moaning in agony on the ground right now in a very clumsy manner. Fairchild quietly sized up the metal box with extreme and serious attention. He was so intense that everyone else present was subconsciously holding their breaths. They feared disturbing this person. They feared causing a situation. A voice then suddenly rang out at this time. Fairchild, don't you even feel an ounce of regret when facing this masterpiece? Everyone else in the room ate a sudden shock. Cat Eyes was worse off. She felt a shiver run down her spine. The voice had been transmitted into the room in a very bizarre manner. It emerged out of nothing within this ramshackled room. The voice was low, feeble, and tapered. The words came out in a low hiss, as if spat out by a snake. Though the voice carried this special characteristic, Cat Eyes was unable to sense anything about it at all. The voice had rung clearly within her ear, but she was unable to grasp any clues from it. Her so-called long-range perception had turned into a mere decoration. Within the encrypted channel, Yuan then uploaded some information. The Secretbound first oblatum, the words of Krait. In this moment, All those with an understanding of the organizational structure of the Order of Justice in the encrypted channel shivered with fear. The Order of Justice was a world-scale secret order. They took equivalent exchange as their core doctrine and made oaths upon it. They, especially their secular side faction, valued their doctrine to a degree impossible to imagine for ordinary people. Many core secrets and esoterica relied on strict, callous oaths to be maintained. The witnesses to these oaths, ranked from low to high, were the clear sworn, the Secretbound, and the Mind-Seer. They were also executors and punishers. They were the axis of power of this entire order's system. Though the Secretbound First Oblatum was ranked in the middle of the First Oblatums, this priest had a status that was higher than the other duties in the Order of Justice by an entire level. The Secretbound was a high-ranking member, a diplomatic officer of secrets. The Order of Justice may be a secret order on a world scale, but there were only 100 or so Secretbounds in total. On average, each metropolis only contained one or two of them. As such, every Secretbound First Oblatum oversaw a region. They were in charge of enormous power. In terms of political status, the society would need to take the leader of their Xia City branch, Aoyang Chen, to match in reciprocity. But further thought proved the emergence of a Secretbound to be no surprise. This was a wrestling of power between high levels of the Order of Justice. The ears of Truth Fairchild had an impressive reputation for his strength on the world level. He was infinitely close to the realm of an extraordinary. Looking at the situation from this perspective, the events so far in Frost River reality were nothing more than a show of extravagance. Those that would come to suffer would be the innocent civilians in the bloodbath and the misfortunate tiny ability users of the society. Damn it, I'm done here. Red Fox could not hold back from expressing his discontent within the encrypted channel. This isn't a problem on the level of a city fire. It's a battle between gods. Normally, it would be too late to hide, but we actually bumped into this with eyes wide open. No one in the society responded for a time, but that was because Fairchild spoke in response to the Secretbound. Though this piece of work is quite refined, it is still a toy that satisfies the blasphemer's sinful desires. I don't see the qualifications for it to be called a masterpiece. The Secretbound First Oblatum used the mystic technique of the words of Krait to laugh softly. As for his whereabouts, not a single person knew. Oh, Fairchild, I need to remind you of something once again. Your logic can be placed upon the two sides of the scales of truth in a perfect exchange. Is this your reasoning? This holy object, this sacrificial vessel, can sustain our order, but it is also a giant toy that satisfies the sinful desires of our believers. Fairchild's expression did not change. This was not the first time that such debates had occurred. He understood extremely well that it was meaningless to use words to retort. And Weng, you just need to understand one thing. This object won't return to your hands. Your laughable, holy exchange will ultimately be reduced to a senseless dream. So you have chosen to cooperate with the ability user society. The moment Weng uttered these words, all the members of the society sharing Cat Eye's perspective felt a shock run through their mind. Despite this, Fairchild did not really react. These kind of words were tantamount to the most serious of accusations. One misstep would spark a clash between these two world-scale organizations, the Order of Justice and the Ability User Society. Unfortunately, Fairchild was disinclined to explain anything. I'm just cleaning up the believers that desecrate the truth. A subtle jolt ran through the room when these words were let loose. The quicksilver-like aura upon Fairchild's body rippled, and all information circulating within the channel were shredded to pieces as the words of Krait were blocked. Fairchild then lowered his arm to take the metal box with the white sleeves of his robe. No one knew what he was going to do with it later on. However, this series of dialogue caused an uproar to occur within the encrypted channel. Red Fox was the most emotional. He directly let out a shriek. "We've been done in good this time. Fairchild is too heartless, taking advantage of the situation for his own benefit. Screw your cleaning up, screw your cooperation. Can't you talk clearly?" Zhang Yingying had entered the channel a bit late, and she had not really paid much detail to the chat history. She was ignorant of the situation and watched the chaotic scene with enjoyment. That metal box must be very crucial. Hopefully, we won't have to fight for it with a lot of effort. The human-faced arachnid is stored within this box, and Guo Ju was supposed to retrieve it. Though I listened to his explanation, he said something about downloading. Bamboo Pole was a technical member, so he was more concerned with the technical issues. He asked Cat Eyes, "What did Guo Ju say earlier?" Cat Eyes had begun sharing her perspective in the middle of Fairchild's and Guo Ju's dialogue exchange. Most of the people within the encrypted channel did not receive the complete information. Naturally, they were still confused. Chapter 106, Words of Krait, Part 2-2. Translator, Strivon. Cat Eyes felt an incoming headache. Complicated theory was involved, and Guo Ju had been in a muddled state of mind. Some aspects were spoken quite vaguely. There were many parts of it that were incomprehensible. She could only simply say, "Apparently this was the most successful experiment that the secular side has made in regards to the human-faced arachnid. If they continued their research, their ultimate target would be mass production. Is this right?" "Hello, I'm asking you." Cat Eyes gave Luo Nan a prod. Luo Nan was a bit surprised. "You're asking me? Who else can I ask? This is the matter that Fairchild seeks to resolve. You and he were chatting so delightfully. Did you clarify the matter?" "This matter was of no value to our discussion." Luo Nan shook his head with sincerity. The conversation he and Fairchild had was mainly in the field of the mutual interference between the mental and material planes. The human-faced arachnid exoskeleton armor was a construct that purely existed on the mental plane, and it was a simple model at that. It could not even be considered to be a soul configuration. What was there worth discussing? Cat Eyes could not refrain from rolling her eyes. So it turned out that this guy was still in his nut job mode. Red Fox was highly anxious all this time and had long since had grievances. He could not hold back from letting out several dozen tusks within the encrypted channel before sneering bitterly. "Mr. Luo, Master Luo, our group of people is braving the great danger of a vicious conflict with the order of justice to give you support. Are you saying that we're doing this for the sake of something that is not worth discussing? All right then. You, sir, are really something. It's fine for me to not be at your beck and call then." Red Fox walked away with his hands swinging upon speaking these words. Next to him, Bamboo Pole saw that things were going down a bad direction and grabbed Red Fox. "Wait, calm down." Luo Nan didn't speak clearly. The topics that he and Fairchild discussed were more abstract. They didn't necessarily touch upon this matter. "And you understand the abstract topics they talked about. Is it for this that we followed him hand and foot? I said early on that today's mission never had a clear objective from the very start. Our duties aren't clear. Our group of people came here in a fluster based on the directions of a nutjob. I haven't seen a human-faced arachnid in this operation yet. Instead, we got ourselves stuck in the middle of the Order of Justice's internal strife. And the result? Their main leaders didn't even make a move yet, and we've gathered our people brazenly to wipe the area with great toil and effort. He's the henchman of the Order of Justice, the vanguard of civil war. Has a nice ring to it, don't you think? Red Fox's anger exploded. If he was not involved in this incident, he would have laughed away instead, taking Luo Nan's and Fairchild's exchange as a joke. However, Red Fox and Bamboo Pole were in the control room of Yulin Hotel right now, and they had left a bit of a trail. The Knights of Equity were here to seize a sniping position. Sooner or later, they would come slaughtering inside. It would be hard to avoid conflict. Red Fox would have been fine if Luo Nan had truly explained the course of events clearly, said words of apologies, and added a word of thanks. However, Luo Nan only said that these things weren't worth discussing. How insensible could this kid be? Moreover, Red Fox had a deeper concern. The society has yet to issue a clear statement as of yet. Expert reinforcements have not arrived. There's no trace of coordination. If we really do discuss this matter with the Order of Justice, what value do we have? Are we the first wave of cannon fodder? Or are we being set up to be the fall guys? Bamboo Pole continued to try and persuade Red Fox. You're overthinking it. President Aoyang is not that kind of person. Everyone has a dark side, you just haven't seen his. Or do you think that this situation can be contained within the scope of Xia City? Everyone, brother and sisters, y'all still haven't figured it out. The situation is already catastrophically enormous. These secret orders are experts in these topics of faith. They make a big fuss over minor issues. They will always believe themselves to be politically correct. Right now, we don't even have proof that we're not aiding Fairchild. Or don't tell me that we're going to send them our conversation log to prove our own innocence. It was now Yuan's turn to try and persuade him. Red Fox, I'm talking with Boss Nan right now. You can go shut up, secretary. Red Fox grew angrier the more he thought about things. He did not give face to anyone. He scolded whoever dared to speak. The state of the encrypted channel turned very awkward when these words were spoken. Red Fox clearly demonstrated that the only person he wanted to talk to was Luo Nan. Anyone else who opened their mouths would just be pouring oil onto the fire. Luo Nan had been lost in thought for a few moments before discovering that he had turned into Red Fox's target. He really was not that insensible. He just did not really think things over too much. He had spoken too bluntly, that was all. The Faith product, which he had dubbed the Human-Faced Arachnid exoskeleton armor, was essentially a simplified model of a soul configuration. Having seen the on-site demonstration with Huang Bingjin, and having his Wraith sign as a true reference, Luo Nan could very well create his own human-faced arachnid exoskeleton armor. All he needed to do was to collect enough negative emotions. This was not hard to do. It was not that big of a deal. On the other hand, this was not Fairchild's realm of expertise. If they really discussed this topic, Fairchild would not have as clear of an understanding as Luo Nan. Luo Nan felt that he was quite wronged for a time. But on the other hand, the report warning about the human-faced arachnid was made recklessly. Additionally, he had ignored Yuan's instructions, by directly entering the site of the incident. This led to the continuous change and escalation of the situation. Indeed, he had made mistakes prior. Though Red Fox had complained constantly about the many changes in the mission objective, he still followed along from beginning to end. Right now, he was about to be involved in a frontal clash with the Order of Justice. Things were extremely dangerous for him. He really did have a basis for his anger. Luo Nan did not mind making apologies, nor did he mind saying a few buttery words. However, the current context was quite complicated. He really did not know what response would be the most appropriate. He looked at the person closest to him, Cat Eyes. Cat Eyes was holding her arms to her chest and had a callous and reproaching appearance that said, "Looking at your awkwardness makes me feel great." However, Cat Eyes had her right arm sticking out to the side. Two fingers stuck up from them and then hooked downwards a few times. Her meaning was to have Luo Nan lower his head and admit his mistakes. She was constantly sharing her perspective, so she used a method that was covert to make it hard for others to discover what she was doing. However, this sort of signal was far too vague. At this time, two friends transmitted messages through the Hexia's personal interface to Luo Nan simultaneously. One friend was He Yuan. The other was actually Zhang Yingying. Apologize to Red Fox. Try communicating with Fairchild and clear up the matter with the Human-Faced Arachnid. Speak a few words to Fairchild. Do some formalities. Red Fox has made many complaints. Just give him a way out and things will be fine. The content of the two messages was different, but the meaning was the same. Both sought to teach Luo Nan ways to alleviate the situation. He Yuan's method followed her style. However, Zhang Yingying's words came as a bit of a surprise to Luo Nan. What Luo Nan wanted was none other than these concrete instructions. He let out a breath of relief and responded obediently within the encrypted channel. "I'm sorry, Red Fox. I didn't really think things over just now. Let me talk with Fairchild once more." Luo Nan was also mulling things over as he spoke. Though Red Fox had spat out a pile of angry words, and some of its content was quite understandable. The biggest problem that their group of society members faced right now was their unclear status with the Order of Justice's internal strife. They were subject to critique, and they did not have any substantial proof to their own innocence. Luo Nan even went to a level deeper in thought. He already understood the Human-Faced Arachnid's configuration, but he had nothing to support his words. There was not enough proof if the society wanted to negotiate with the Order of Justice behind the scenes. The only true conclusive proof was naturally that metal box within Fairchild's hand. Luo Nan more or less had an understanding of Fairchild's nature. At most, Fairchild would do a verification of the storage unit. After that, it was highly probable for Fairchild to simply destroy the unit. That would be really quite the waste. Luo Nan's mind was clear. He spoke to Fairchild. "Mr. Fairchild, if you're not going to use that storage unit, why don't you leave it with us for verification and safekeeping?" Cat Eyes. He Yuan. Zhang Yingying. Red Fox, F***K, what the hell are you doing? Chapter 107, The Shield of Truth, Part 1-2. Translator, Strivon. Red Fox was not the only one exploding with anger when Luo Nan let these words out of his mouth. Everyone in the encrypted channel was exploding with anger. You all saw it, you all saw it. Red Fox was drained of all his energy by the time he finished reproaching Luo Nan. His roaring turned into a moan. "I knew all along that this bastard was a complete weasel. A true idiot." Zhang Yingying smacked her face with her palm and felt too embarrassed to face anyone. She was unable to meet Zhu Lei's eyes, even though he was looking at her as if he were looking at a lunatic. Just how naive was she? She actually believed that this kid, who was completely serious in being hired as an office worker, would be able to fix this matter. Though Bamboo Pole believed himself to possess the calmness and collectedness of a technical worker, he could not but help say, in the future, it would be better to not let him speak and just have him draw his psychic drawings. Truthfully speaking, Luo Nan's words just now made everyone speechless. If this was a request, it was too presumptuous. After all, Fairchild had made his stance very clear towards Secretbound, First Oblatum, and Weng. The metal box was a crucial object that Fairchild would not even negotiate with an Weng over. Why would he give it to you, Luo Nan? One bad move and Fairchild would become hostile. If Luo Nan was negotiating, well, he was being absurd. Right now, what the Order of Justice's secular side-eyed was none other than this metal box. This group of people would engage in open slaughter without the slightest hesitation, even if it was in the middle of a bustling city center. They possessed that kind of resolution and determination. This metal box was something that burned and scalded the possessor's hands, yet you want it. What kind of mental disease do you have? Actually, Luo Nan felt that his own words were a bit odd after they had left his mouth. He saw the reactions in the encrypted channel and feared that he had made yet another mistake. However, Fairchild had already turned to look at him. They locked gazes, and after some brief thought, Fairchild nodded. "If you want it, here." Fairchild tossed the metal box over upon speaking. He was direct and efficient. "Don't catch it. Can you not be so precarious? Look, this is what it means to push the boat with the current, to take advantage of the situation." The encrypted channel was filled with voices of fussing. However, Luo Nan could not just slap the metal box back to Fairchild. He reached out with his hand instinctively, and 5 fingers touched the metal box. The box still retained a bit of heat when it entered his hands. It was like the residue heat of a high-speed, high-operation instrument. At this very moment, half of the people in the encrypted channel howled in grief, and the other half maintained their silence. This sort of atmosphere was simply like the end of the world. How could he be so stupid to do such a thing? How can he be so stupid beyond saving? Nevertheless, Luo Nan was a bit annoyed. He was able to accept criticism, and he was willing to admit that his level of social skills was not very high, but did it validate this damn atmosphere? They acted like the sun was going to explode in the next instant. This metal box played such an important role in this entire course of events thus far. This should have been obvious to everyone from the moment Ju began his confession to Fairchild. He took a breath and let out some information in the encrypted channel. Isn't this storage unit the Order of Justice's research? The conclusive proof of the experimental human-faced arachnid. Yoho, Master Luo feels like he's been wronged. Red Fox gave a cold laugh. Conclusive proof. Based on an external component of a robot. Based on a one-sided speech of a dead man. Or is it the cryptic exchange between Fairchild and the Secretbound First Oblatum? Master Luo, let me teach you something. The words of Krait is the Order of Justice's Secretbound gateway technique. There exists no instruments capable of recording and saving it. Luo Nan was baffled. He continued to speak in the encrypted channel. The society intervened early on. We used various monitoring, perspective sharing, video archiving. Everything was done well. The entire plot progression is clear and complete. In this day and age, it is too easy to pass fakes as the real thing. Your ability user society intervened early on. You must have planned things early on. Red Fox imitated what the Order of Justice would say, stopping Luo Nan in his tracks. Luo Nan was at a loss. He did not know what to say, but he still was not willing to concede. He ground his teeth and used his thoughts as a pen to draw a simplified 2D composition within the encrypted channel. Though Luo Nan believed it was simple, it was a refined composition formed from crisscrossing and weaving lines of diagrams pieced together. It was drawn in an instant in order to have those in the encrypted channel quiet down a bit. Red Fox was a bit dumbstruck. What's the meaning of this? Are you trying to charm me with a drawing? Upon finishing drawing this composition with haste, Luo Nan used the marking function of the psychic wave network in the form of an eye-striking red pen. He delineated several dozen red circles upon the 2D composition in the span of a single breath. This is the energy and information structure stored within the storage unit. A simplified reconstruction technique is included as well. Much of the details involved are special patterns that appear repeatedly. Aren't these patterns solely used by the Order of Justice? In fact, many of these structures had appeared within Fairchild's Shield of Truth configuration. They acted as super key nodes in its application. Luo Nan only dared to be so confident because he had seen this. These patterns act as the inner core structure of the storage unit. It is a unique process, a unique method. Chasing back this trail binds all sorts of informational evidence. Don't tell me that you're so passive that you won't be able to form an iron case out of it. Red Fox was defeated by this technical train of thought. He did not know how to respond for a time. Next to him, Bamboo Pole looked at the composition with rapt attention. He muttered lowly, "I don't know if these are processes unique to the Order of Justice, but I've looked at some material of the Order of Justice's inner rituals, and there really are similar structural arrangements. These just a little bit morphed. These here are used for storage." Bamboo Pole was not only a remarkable hacker, he was also an expert in the research of secret orders. In the case of Bamboo Pole, he really did carry quite the degree of credibility. Due to this composition, the attention of this group of people became a bit scattered. Zhang Yingying spoke with surprise. "This is the internal structure of the metal box. How has your sensing precision improved so fast? If this is indeed the inner structure of the storage unit, and it is indeed the result of mental sensing, then converting the volume of the metal box itself. That means that the precision of his mental senses should be approaching the micron level." Since she had entered the encrypted channel, Bai Xinyan had been silent until now. This was the first time she had spoken, and she spoke with a dull tone. "Student Luo Nan, you're carrying an excessive burden based on your physical condition." Luo Nan recalled that she used to call him Mr. Luo. Was he being downgraded now? After a moment of shock, he said, "My body's fine. I just believe that we have sufficient evidence to explain the facts, that we can make an iron-hard case." Red Fox was postponed by the continuous interruption of several people. He saw that Luo Nan was still stubborn in his views and directly confronted him. "A case? What case are you making? Whose case are you handling? Who's going to file this case? A case between the society and this secret order isn't just a case. It's an open clash of contention. It's total war. Master Luo, the ability user society may be supporting you and our number of members may be enormous, but we're a very loose organization. A single impromptu operation can send a lot of people running off and quitting. Also, you're facing the Order of Justice. They have millions of devout believers. They are a world-scale secret order with extraordinaries by the handful. Do you know how serious this is? Moreover, there's a saying in this world, this is one thing, that is another. The society can put the Order of Justice in a jam by saying that they're breeding human-faced arachnids. It's not a problem, but in regards to the Order of Justice, it is out of the question to involve yourself with their internal affairs. This is F*** King politics. This is F*** King reality. Chapter 107, The Shield of Truth, Part 2-2. Translator, Strivon. This series of frigid irony and scorching satire was sent over. However, Red Fox had made a novice-like error during his torrent of words. He had used the hexoia as a standard telephone. All thoughts of telepathic communication were completely forgotten. He just directly roared with his voice. Red Fox's mood was not alleviated after his roaring. Instead, he grew even more hot-tempered. He smashed his fist atop the control console and cursed, "Retard." He still continued to feel irritable, so he pulled against his red jacket and cursed, "Weasel." Bamboo Pole shook his head, no longer uttering words into the encrypted channel. He just simply spoke to Red Fox to mollify him. Though he may be addressed as Mr., he's still a kid. And Xia City is not the same as Hu City. Red Fox's expression turned even uglier when he heard the words, Hu City. He shot an ice-cold glance towards Bamboo Pole. The only thing different is the distance. Back then, I ran out of Hu City like a dog. Here I am now at Xia City, where I don't want to die like a dog. I don't want to be thrown into the dump by others. Bamboo Pole shrugged. He no longer tried to persuade Red Fox, since some not-so-friendly faces had shown up in the monitoring system. These faces were heading over to the control room, over to them. Bamboo Pole sighed and asked within the encrypted channel. Trouble has come as expected. What should we do? Yuan asked him. Can you confirm what weapons the enemy currently possess? Bamboo Pole understood Yuan's meaning. She was not asking for them to immediately barricade the door from these people. She was asking what sort of plans the Order had in Yulin Hotel, what deployment they had prepared against Fairchild. She was more stubborn than he had expected. A big fellow. Their main combat weapon is certainly a big fellow. Bamboo Pole multitasked. He switched repeatedly between the monitoring screens and confirmed his target. They were already starting to set up. It's very likely a sniper weapon. To the best of my knowledge, many secret orders are researching supernatural versions of sniper artillery cannons. Against a single target, this toy can be several times more powerful than a particle cannon. Of course, I have my doubts on whether or not it will be effective against the Shield of Truth. Yuan was not superfluous. She just simply responded, retreat, head towards the predetermined reinforcement point. Red Fox sneered off to the side. He gestured with his hand implying, you see, I knew it. The corner of Bamboo Pole's mouth twitched. You're the one shouting, Master, with the Order of Justice on our doorstep, and now that we are retreating, you slap me on the face. Bamboo Pole felt quite displeased. In the end, Bamboo Pole did not say anything. He packed up his equipment from the control room in 5 seconds and walked out with Red Fox. The control room was on a floor close to the roof. This floor was not used for accommodations. It was absolutely empty and utterly quiet. Red Fox felt uneasy. He muttered, it's way too late to retreat now. He Yuan and the others caught the Order's snipers off guard at Frost River Reality. Now, the Order will be prepared to ambush us from all sides. Oh crap. Ahead, the door to the fire escape was heaved open, but Bamboo Pole and Red Fox were smart. Without even seeing a trace of a person, they knew that people were coming with bad intentions. They glanced at each other, turned around, and ran. The fine electric hum of Gauss rifles reverberated behind them in the empty floor, and were exceptional at instilling fear into their souls. I'm not part of the D*MN combat personnel, Bamboo Pole cursed. But before cursing, he had pressed a special button on the flexible screen in his hands. The floor's fire alarm went off, and several heat-blocking walls came falling down. Electromagnetic projectiles shot out from weapon barrels, only to bombard against the layer of transparent walls. They pierced through, but the walls caused their trajectories to deviate. At the same time, a door opened up to the side. Bamboo Pole shouted, "Over here!" Red Fox and Bamboo Pole then rammed their way inside. They made their way through the room as fast as they could. They did not hesitate in the slightest. They traversed through a large open window and jumped into the night sky at an altitude of nearly 1,000 meters. After performing this suicidal action, it was as if their feet had stepped onto blazing wheels. They slid down the vertical glass walls of the hotel at astonishing speeds. Bamboo Pole controlled his balance with some difficulty. He chuckled. No wonder the society has rapid dissension from high stories as their final exam question for their junior training class. It's very useful. Red Fox gnashed his teeth in anger. Master Luo should have his name changed to Weasel. The chaotic situation at Yulin Hotel was naturally shown in the encrypted channel. Red Fox had the most complaints about Luo Nan, but he could not afford to be distracted right now. Luo Nan was relieved from being targeted by him, yet his mood did not turn for the better. Red Fox's words were like a blade that cut the heart rather than the skin. Luo Nan was silent as he was baptized by Red Fox's political and realistic views. This did not mean that Luo Nan felt that Red Fox was wrong. On the contrary, Luo Nan felt that the more Red Fox argued, the more his loathing became unearthed from the depths of his heart. In the end, Red Fox's focus clearly shifted from Luo Nan to politics and realism. Luo Nan was only a tool he used as a target for his mockery and scorn. Things were really just as Red Fox had said. While the human-faced arachnids were wreaking havoc in Xia City, the Order of Justice was studying this supernatural creature, engaging in sinister research. In fact, there was irrefutable evidence of this. But in the end, if they could get off easy and pressure with countercharges, what would be the point of going after them? The validity of Red Fox's words could be seen in the reactions of those in the encrypted channel and from Luo Nan's personal experience. Luo Nan's experience with the Bloodflame Order was an excellent example. Mo Lun brought along a human-faced arachnid for grazing and had made a move against members of the society. In the end, the society left the matter unsettled. Back then, Luo Nan's wraith sign was masquerading as the Bloodflame Order's human face arachnid like a dove, occupying a magpie's nest. Luo Nan did not really think much about the society's lack of action, but now that he thought about it, were not things just as Red Fox was saying. Politics, reality. Luo Nan would not find it strange at all if this sort of thing were to occur in regular society. He held a bit of a pessimistic view towards the hearts of normal people after all. But here he had the enormous ability user organization that was greatly detached from the normal world. Why were they also like this? Luo Nan had even wanted to promote and develop his grandfather's formatting theory within the society to great brilliance. If there was not much difference between here and normal, secular societies, then how could he possibly guarantee that his grandfather's theory would not fall once again to its death? Disappointment, major disappointment. This feeling of extreme disappointment was Luo Nan's current state of mind. He did not feel like talking and just tossed the warm metal box back and forth in his hand. He wanted some peace and quiet if it was possible. However, how would there be a chance for some peace and quiet right now? While his mood was churning around with the tossing of the metal box, he felt with great clarity some extremely obscure force upon the mental plane. It formed a region of turmoil. It felt extremely negative, like a sheet of gloomy clouds, and it covered most of the pulsations given off by the force of life. Luo Nan could feel the malice rippling from the void. This must be the real way the secular side of the order of justice did things. Luo Nan ceased the movements of his hands as the dark cloud pressed down. He lifted his head and just so happened to meet Fairchild's eyes straight on. At first glance, those gray pupils looked like the hazy layers of the dark cloud. However, those pupils also contained resolution and willpower. They pierced the cloud layer with their positive light, making it hard to look directly into Fairchild's eyes. Fairchild did not know the cause for Luo Nan being lost in thought. His gaze still remained fallen upon the metal box that Luo Nan was tossing around. A moment passed, and he suddenly spoke. "We have yet to touch upon the entirety of the truth, and I have been brimming with anticipation towards its real form, but due to this intolerable interference, the truth has not shown itself fully. The goal we are pursuing has been desecrated. However, I can ensure one thing, and that is this ground has been erected as the domain of truth." The quicksilver-like aura exuding from his body circulated as his voice undulated with syllables, subtly suffusing the ground with its illumination. The cloudy light proliferated outwards. Chapter 108, Observing Powers, Part 1-2. Translator, Strivon. The dark cloud of the mental plane covered the entirety of the surrounding area. It endlessly stirred and transformed as it tried to invade Fairchild's domain. However, as it pressed and warped against the domain, traces of the dark cloud's essence emerged. It transformed into a swaying and sinister deep chant that appeared on the material plane. The words of Krait. Cat eyes reached out to pull Luo Nan back. Her expression was grave, as though she had been confronted by a formidable foe. The society had managed to block off the sniper points, causing the Knights of Equity to retreat temporarily. Now, the secular side revealed their methods once more. This time, they had given up traditional means of long-ranged attacks and utilized supernatural powers directly. However, this sound was of a different frequency, compared to the sound First Oblatum and Weng used as pure conversation. This hissing chant was filled with dark and chilling power. More than half of the lighting in the room had been extinguished by the hail of bullets, and the darkness of the room grew all the more deeper and heavier when this chanting sound manifested into existence. The little bit of remaining light radiated in messy trails of grotesque and mottled colors, causing the room to seem warped and twisted. In comparison, the radiance of Fairchild's shield of truth was finite in filling the room. However, a radiance was still released in the area established by Fairchild. It was pure and clear, and no matter how much the chanting sound stirred and pressed, not an ounce of it could permeate through. Luo Nan's gaze concentrated on the sheet of pure, clear radiance. He whispered hoarsely, "This erected ground truly is the domain of truth. Wait until you make it back alive before becoming religious, K." Cat eyes gave Luo Nan a pull, hinting at him to pay attention to the contents of the encrypted channel. Yuan had already given the order to retreat. Luo Nan did not move. It would not be that easy for them to leave in the current circumstances, even if they wanted to. Rays of light that came in from the world outside the door were severed and blocked. Two rapping sounds could be heard as someone knocked against the door frame. The force used was quite considerable, for the entire room seemed to shake twice. However, the one who came did not exert this much strength deliberately. He was not wearing an exoskeleton armor, but his height exceeded 2 meters. He stood in front of the door and had to duck down to avoid hitting the lintel. He was even half naked, his chest exposing a pitch-black skin that shined like oil. Tough fascia joined his brick-like muscles, and they rippled along with his breathing. He was like a black tiger ready to pounce. Based on physique alone, he looked even brawnier than Fairchild, whom was already extremely tall and muscular. He ignored the gazes of everyone else in the room and solely faced the radiating aura coming from Fairchild. He grinned and laughed, revealing snow-white teeth. "Mr. Fairchild, it's been a long time. Oh, you probably don't remember me." Baze, Fairchild spoke this name with a whisper. "Much thanks, Mr. Fairchild. You still have an impression of me." This black and brawny man called Baze had spoken each syllable of Mr. Fairchild in a gentle and courteous manner. It really did not match his appearance. "I've always been very grateful for the teachings you gave me when I first entered the Order. You taught me the progression of cultivation and told me the importance of control. What a pity! In the end, I still chose to go down a different road. I feel that aggressive and rough methods are better suited for me. Power has not left my side in doing so." Luo Nan felt a dangerous tension emerge from this black and brawny Baze when he performed this master and disciple reunion show. Luo Nan could not refrain from asking, "Who are you?" "Black Tiger Baze of the Knights of Equity, deputy head of the Xia City division." Cat eyes straightened the crooked cap on her head and subconsciously loosened her muscle fibers to be agiler for the bitter battle ahead. It was not strange at all for a fellow like Baze to appear in a high-level internal strife of the order of justice. But fear in reality was ultimately different than the pressure in theory. She needed to give Luo Nan a good lesson, since he was lacking in common sense. At the same time, she needed to give herself a reminder. A freak who has broken through to become an awakened, based purely on the power of his gifted fleshly body. Yet I've also heard rumors that he was only able to obtain his ability through the Order of Justice's life and death ritual. Well, in any case, if one were to select the top 10 people with the strongest fleshly bodies, then Crag Burst would barely be at the tail end. Senior Giant Arm and Senior Zong Jai of the Society would be ranked roughly in the middle due to their burst strength and technical ability. However, this Baze is certainly in the top 3. Luo Nan went, "Oh." He now had a clearer understanding of Baze's strength. He had seen Crag Burst's and Giant Arm's abilities before. Crag Burst was able to walk away without a scratch under the impact of a high-explosive incendiary. As for Mr. Giant Arm, he was more of a pure martial artist. The power of his fist could pierce through an armored vehicle, and he was able to forcefully hold down the exoskeleton armored jack. Indeed, Mr. Giant Arm possessed inconceivable skills. If a true fight were to arise, Luo Nan did not know what sort of style Mr. Giant Arm would exhibit. On the basis of his fleshly body, Baze exceeded these two in power. His strength was great, as one could well imagine. At this time, Yuan released some information into the encrypted channel. Pay attention. Though the strength of Baze's fleshly body is formidable, what he has always relied on has never been his fleshly body. As for what Baze had always relied on, well, he had already begun to reveal it as he blocked the exit to the room. He took a deep breath, and his head tilted down slightly. Upon the oily sheen of his pitch-black skin, there were lit streaks and streaks of tattoo structures. It was as if an invisible being was writing twisted scripts upon his body. The surrounding illumination warped even further. Looking up, one could see that each script seemed to ignite with flame, then etch themselves deep into his body and burned through the void. The words of Krait answered with its hiss. The sound of a snake's tongue was now like the sound of flesh burning. Yuan updated them with more information. Baze is a human body weapon of the Order of Justice. Through him, the first oblatum can fully display their power lying in the mental plane. So this sort of method exists. Luo Nan's breadth of knowledge had increased. This was an application he had never thought of before. For a pure, mentally enhanced ability user, this was quite a decent transformation to use. It could be assumed that the human body weapon component to this transformation would not be that easy to cultivate. Luo Nan thought to himself for a bit, but then cat eyes glared at him from the side. "The heck are you thinking about?" "Nothing much." Luo Nan did not speak what was on his mind. Things would have been better for Cat Eyes if she did not say anything. Her speaking had invoked a certain train of thought in Luo Nan. If he increased his control over Ink, Rui Wen, and even Cat Eyes in a certain sense, wouldn't this be the same type of method that the first oblatum was using? Though his method would be a bit more passive. Baze strode in with heavy steps as several thoughts flashed in Luo Nan's mind. His brawny body entered the darkness and squeezed into the room. The muscles of his body rippled regularly, and the strange script that covered him seemed to come alive. Every step seemed to paint an otherworldly and bewitching picture. He was like a flame radiating with darkness, ready to pounce. The dark flames crossed with an area of Fairchild's aura. Black and white rays of light fused to form a warped ashy gray layer in an instant. Baze lifted his head, revealing pupils like burning coal. His mouth split into a grin. "Fairchild, the truth does not obey your fancies." His voice oozed with a bizarre noise. There was another voice in there out of harmony. There was a bizarre existence that was talking in sync with Baze. Fairchild only had a single sentence as a response in the face of this. F***K off. Chapter 108, Observing Powers, Part 2-2. Translator, Strivon. Fairchild's snow-white robe fluttered, and the liquid quicksilver aura rippled. The just-formed grey layer was torn asunder and Baze, and his overwhelming assault was thrown off the ground and was forced to fly backward. Truth Mirror, the members of the society, who had the leisure to watch Cat Eye's shared perspective, flooded the channel with this term. Fairchild practically did not exert any effort in that instant. Instead, it was the ultimate technique of the Shield of Truth that forcefully bounced Baze's attack back and made Baze take on the full force. Just by looking at the power of the surging dark flame attack of Baze, one would wonder just how incredible the shield was to be able to reflect practically all of it back. This was a very classical method that Fairchild used in his judgment and executions. Though he had never personally given this move a formal name, the circle of ability users had long since called it the truth mirror. Its reputation was resounding. Luo Nan could see things far clearer than the others. Baze's technique was not purely on the material plane or a technique used for physical purposes. It was a technique that interfered between the material and the mental plane to form a structural force. Luo Nan was even able to capture the entire process. Explosions of intense ripples instantly split and fused between the mental and material planes before it converged to the material plane. There they formed an enormous attack. However, Baze's mental plane remained stable, even after he had actively guided and transformed the energy. The attack power on the material plane had become strong, yet the destructiveness towards the mental plane had been dissipated away. This allowed the domain of the words of Krait to remain stable. From this point of view, Baze was not a bit lacking when compared to Fairchild. The two people's powers were cutting and transforming back and forth between the material and the mental planes. The hardest thing about this method was to achieve the transformation technique of interference between planes. It did not matter whether it was Fairchild or Baze. Both of them achieved this through a structure that interfered between the body and the soul. They had inhumanly brawny bodies and staunch willpower, and this was the basis for realizing this sort of transformation. It would be very hard for Luo Nan to realize a similar transformation model in his life. However, the fact that Luo Nan was able to pry the marvels of these mysteries wide open was quite an inconceivable matter. Not a single person in the encrypted channel had voiced any opinions on the deep level of mechanics displayed before them. Next to him, Cat Eye's mental senses were not even able to get close to Baze and Fairchild's war zone. If she forced it, it was extremely likely for her to suffer recoil. Part of the reason why Luo Nan was able to do this so easily was because of the exchange he just had with Fairchild. It lay in the domain where the mental and the material plane mutually interfered, so his thought process on this was clear. But another part of the reason was what he could faintly perceive. It seemed that his mental senses were a bit out of the ordinary. The soul strength he was able to achieve from cultivating in formatting theory, and the depth of his clairvoyance was superior to that of the other experienced ability users like Cat Eyes and Mr. By with their perception and forte in soul studies. At the very least, Luo Nan's clairvoyance had never been locked on or been detected successfully by others. Additionally, after he gained a clear understanding of the marvels of soul breathing, he was able to seamlessly shift and transform between the shallow and deep levels of the mental plane. Most observers would find him unfathomable. In this way, Luo Nan's special clairvoyant sensing was able to extract and parse great quantities of deep information from phenomenon that ordinary people would see as normal. He then fed the information back to his soul configuration, where they converge into a special experience. This experience was the key requirement for the endless strengthening of his soul. Fairchild had once said that there was nothing more important than observation. This was indeed a truth, at least for a mentally enhanced individual. Luo Nan had come to finally experience for himself the superiorities of this most crucial of abilities, observation. Anyhow, before this, he had always considered this ability as a burden. Upon blasting Baze away, Fairchild walked out the room with large strides. The quicksilver-like aura surrounding his body was a special characteristic of the operation of energy within his body and soul interference structure. Many special structural details inside were only truly revealed in combat. The sight of this enchanted Luo Nan. It was because of this that Luo Nan had a particularly sharp response when this structure was hit by Baze's attack. Fairchild had only walked a few steps of distance before a bad feeling of danger suddenly sprouted in Luo Nan's heart. He shouted, "Careful!" This warning was not directed towards Fairchild. The enemy knew quite well where Fairchild's weakness lay, hoping to endlessly accumulate their superiority on the mental plane and break the structural operation of Fairchild's shield of truth. However, Fairchild never gave the enemy the opportunity. The area he controlled was as stable as a boulder. Even though on the mental plane he could only manifest a layer of water, he let this turbid water surge to the skies and tower unmovingly. However, the words of Krait was a gateway technique that seemed to be able to extract power from the suffering of living beings in the user's surroundings and rapidly transform it for the user. When the words of Krait was activated at full force, every single living being in the surroundings became its fulcrum. Ultimately, Luo Nan's warning was issued a beat too late. The moment the words left his mouth, the hissing of the words of Krait exploded in volume. The warped darkness within the room did not break its focus from Fairchild or lessen. Instead, the darkness increased in weight. The mental plane, the plane that the words of Krait affected, was being rapidly diffused and permeated with this darkness, covering an enormous piece of area. Cat Eyes groaned. She had her mental senses out by habit, and it was like being bitten by a viper. Her 5 senses and consciousness all received the attack. The moment of pain was simply like having her skull forcefully pressed into a lake of venom. The pain was so much that her body went weak and soft. In the encrypted channel, Yuan assigned a member, White Salt. "I know I'll be there soon," said Bai Xinyan in agreement. Soon, her voice faded away. Her strength should be above average, but she could not be counted on for a short time. Luckily, the chains deep within Cat Eyes' body and soul vibrated and rattled, counteracting much of the attack and eliminating a lot of the pain. Cat Eyes could not refrain from gnashing her teeth. She cast an ice-cold glance at Luo Nan, but she still reached out her hand and pulled him to retreat. "Over here." No matter what, she did not dare to head out from the main exit. Fortunately, the sniper fire from before had pierced through the soundproof walls, giving them different routes to choose from. Luo Nan even wanted to watch the fight between Fairchild and Baze, but he knew that putting himself in life or death danger was really insensible. He cast another glance outside the door and he could no longer see Fairchild's figure. There was a problem though. Luo Nan saw Zhu Weilan instead. Zhu Weilan scrambled to the exit and began grabbing the few unconscious special forces and dragging them inside. "Uncle Zhu, you guys go ahead and leave first." In any event, Zhu Weilan could not abandon his subordinates and flee by himself, but there had been 7 special police officers attacked by Fairchild. There was a limit to how many people he could carry, even with the aid of his exoskeleton armor, and he could not just pile 7 living bodies atop of each other and heave them all over. Most importantly, Zhu Weilan did not understand the black magic involved in these fights. Right now, the words of Krait's layer of influence was endlessly probing outwards on the mental plane. Cat Eyes had already suffered from it, and soon, the words of Krait would affect normal people. Zhu Weilan possessed willpower that was extremely strong for a normal person, but there was still a large discrepancy when compared to an ability user. When the time came, he would be wiped out like his subordinates, possibly even more miserably. Cat Eyes hissed as she pressed her hand against her aching head. They were too helpless in this situation. If Officer Zhu did not talk to his son through Zhang Yingying's channel, she would walk away right now with ease. However, that one event made it impossible and inexcusable for her to feign ignorance right now. We will need to make 2 trips at least for 7 people. Cat Eyes made a rapid judgment and ordered Luo Nan, make your way out first, meet up with White Salt. She turned around to help Zhu Weilan upon speaking, but Luo Nan pulled her to a stop. Hold on. Luo Nan's body began to exude a faint glow as these words left his mouth. Chapter 109, Destruction, Part 1-2. Translator, Strivon. Cat Eye's pupils shrank as she sensed that Luo Nan was utilizing his soul's strength. To be able to display this effect showed just how exceptional Luo Nan's soul strength was. Before she entered this operation, He Yuan had emphasis to Cat Eyes that Luo Nan was currently undergoing treatment due to a critical imbalance between his body and soul. As such, Luo Nan was not allowed to utilize his ability too excessively. Otherwise, the strength of his soul would cause critical harm to his nervous system. Luo Nan had already courted death once before, but the dangers of the mental conversation back then between the nutjob and the mad believer had been neglected. This time, Cat Eyes was able to sense it. Several regions of Luo Nan's nervous system were involved now, and there were clearly some subtle warping and morphing within them. But what the hell was this aura? If Cat Eyes could see it, that would mean that everyone else in the encrypted channel could see it too. Bai Xinyan, who was rushing over, drew out a long sigh. Doctors with such headstrong patients find themselves in quite the dilemma. He Yuan's strict and serious voice cut through. Mr. Luo, I ask that you do not overuse your ability so as to avoid unexpected consequences. These words were quite serious and served as a reminder for Cat Eyes. She grabbed Luo Nan's shoulder to put a stop to it. However, with a rattle of the chains seated deep within her body and soul, her entire self quivered a bit from inside out. It was as if she had been electrocuted, and her hand froze by the time it extended halfway to Luo Nan. In the end, she was unable to move a single inch. It finally came. Cat Eyes' heart was pounding, but soon her heart was filled with vexation. This was what she feared the most after the operation at Limestone Water Village pub last week. She had impinged on Luo Nan with her mental senses while he was making his psychic drawing and had suffered a counterattack. She had become the recipient of Luo Nan's unfathomable ability and had incorporeal chains pierce through her body and soul. She was imprisoned by this ability. In the following week, however, Luo Nan did not make any strange moves. The chain's existence had gradually become undetectable, but this only haunted her more. In today's operation, their close proximity did not spur any undue activity with Luo Nan. Instead, Luo Nan had helped her in a few crises through these chains. Just when Cat Eyes began to believe that she had misunderstood Luo Nan, the true nature of Luo Nan's technique was exposed in this crucial moment. Right now, she was basically like a cat with a chained leash. If her master did not want her to move, then her neck would be reined in by the chains, no matter her struggles. Cat Eyes glared at Luo Nan with killing intent. This was not an exaggeration. She wanted to pounce on him and snap his throat with a bite. He can just F***K off and die for using his soul's strength against her. At this very moment, the sound of an astonished Zhu Weilan was heard. Cat Eyes had her long-range perception ability. She did not need to turn her head. She could already see it. A figure had manifested upon each of the bodies of the 7 special police officers. It was the size of a fist, and its form. It was a tetrahedron with an inscribed sphere and an outer-scribed sphere. That's right. It was the avatar that Luo Nan had used in the encrypted channel. Cat Eyes was a bit shocked. Her anger stagnated a bit. Just looking at this scene, she could tell that this was an anomaly that was formed from power on the mental plane interfering with the material plane. According to theories in soul studies, the effectiveness of the mutual interference between the mental and material planes was inversely proportional to the entropy. In other words, the fact that a symbol was manifested means that the efficiency and the order were high. The more orderly it was, the more efficient the soul's strength became at affecting the material plane, and the stronger the control ability became. Most notably was the fact that Luo Nan was attending to 7 bodies with a single mind and caused 7 figures to manifest the symbol simultaneously. Even though each figure was exactly the same, even if each figure was just for appearance purposes. Before her train of thought could end, Cat Eyes was able to sense the bodies of the unconscious special police officers tremble one by one. These were clear signs that these officers were regaining consciousness. In the end, Cat Eyes could not refrain from turning and looking at the scene with bulging eyes. Zhu Weilan had a moment of astonishment before ultimately realizing the cause for the change. He turned and looked over. Luo Nan let out a long breath. He did not make any fancy movements, but the 7 figures rippled simultaneously. In answer, minute vibrations came into being on the mental and the material planes. It was as if a muffled buzz was ringing in Cat Eye's ears. In that instant, the constant hissing sound of the words of Krait turned indistinct, only to never recover back. Then came the groaning sound of a special police officer. Once one officer sat up by instinct, then came another. The special police officers sat up one by one from the ground and turned over. They were still befuddled, but this sort of magical awakening left Cat Eyes and Zhu Weilan stupefied. It was not just these two. Zhang Yingying in the encrypted channel went. She felt some indescribable emotions, so she simply tossed out a series of stupefied emojis, flooding the channel like mad. Ho 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 ho, who was the one who gave him such a huge power-up this week? Did a certain secretary and he engage in dual cultivation? This progress is illogical, this technique. Before she could finish off the rest of her message, she was muted by a certain secretary. However, the meaning behind Zhang Yingying's words were the thoughts of the majority. Zhu Weilan was fine. In any case, he would just have capable experts explain fields he did not understand. But for the professionals of the society, the hardest part was explaining things in layman's terms. It must be known that it was easier to destroy than it was to create. In this case, destroying was Fairchild knocking these clear-headed people unconscious, and creating was Luo Nan instantly awakening these unconscious people. From disorder to order. From high entropy to low entropy. The difficulties between the two were incomparable. In the end, how did Luo Nan accomplish this? Red Fox and Bamboo Pole made it to the reinforcement point and met up with Paper Cut. Breathing unsteadily, they gasped for breath, and they nearly choked to death when they heard what Luo Nan had done. After 2 coughs, they guessed, Fairchild knocked these special police officers out. Did Fairchild give Luo Nan the technique to save them? You think Fairchild is that bored? Said the person who was really bored. Paper Cut was using a piece of paper to file his nails. He had yet to do anything in the operation as of yet. There were no clear indicators for why the special police officers had awakened beside the projected figures, half submerged in the chests of their exoskeleton armors. Just look at his avatar. It's exactly the same as these 7 figures. Oh right, he mentioned something about his grandfather's formatting theory before. Are these things related to that? What is that theory? Formatting theory, an imaginative idea that has long since been washed away by reality. It truly has been ages since it was last heard. Bai Xinyan walked freely in the empty amusement center. The message history of the encrypted channel had been loaded in her wristband and was being replayed back to her retina as the keywords were being searched. The term formatting theory, that papercut was suspicious of, just so happened to be the same term that she was looking up. She shrugged her shoulders and broke into laughter. The 7 figures attracted nearly everyone's attention. Bai Xinyan was not an exception. However, the angle she focused on was a bit different than the others. A tetrahedron with an inscribed sphere and an outer-scribed sphere. This was a typical figure in a standard geometry course. The appearance of such a figure now made everyone astonished. However, Bai Xinyan had long since searched through internal publications and found it used in the context of a different practice. And there, it was in circumstances far more exciting than now. Soon Bai Xinyan was able to retrieve some information. She linked this with her previous knowledge and said, "Luo Nan, Scout, looks like you're still a psychic. That obsolete theory has been dug out with new worth by the Luo family right when they're facing self-destruction." Bai Xinyan blinked her eyes, cutting off the endlessly scrolling information projected on her retina. With both hands in the pockets of her jacket, she pursed her lips and continued walking at a brisk yet calm pace. Looking at Luo Nan's circumstances, it seems he's just a step away from ultimate destruction. Now, wouldn't that be quite the waste? Chapter 109, Destruction, Part 2-2. Translator, Strivon. Doctors have professional ethics, proper ethics. Bai Xinyan's lips curved into a teasing smile as she stopped following her current train of thoughts. She had already obtained many gains today. Right now, she needed to do something else, to play the role of a qualified doctor. As such, she placed her attention into acting with the appropriate conduct. She replayed the video from Cat Eye's shared perspective several times. Cat Eyes had her eyes fixed on Luo Nan for quite a period of time. From the video, Bai Xinyan could see the minute twitching of Luo Nan's cheeks and forehead, regions concentrated with nerves. She could also see the dilation and contraction of his pupils. She could not see below his neck and shoulders, but things should be similar there. These were signs of his nervous system being intensely stimulated. And at the same time, a faint aura that was quite eye-catching burst from inside Luo Nan's body to the outside. Its power filled and supported the concentration of his neurons. This aura eliminated as much of the destructive power possible. It was able to eliminate the destructive power caused by the intense stimulation of soul's strength. Thinking about it, this was the fundamental reason behind Luo Nan's capacity to use his soul's strength without any worries. For the time being, it stopped the destructive path he trod and allowed him to make it past. Fortune. Bai Xinyan used a doctor's insight to make this judgment. Soon, she spoke in the encrypted channel. "Student Luo Nan, your current state is fine. Is it due to that punch by Fairchild?" "Yep, it was because of his punch just now." Luo Nan did not want people to haphazardly guess around like it was a game show, so he borrowed this opportunity given by Bai Xinyan to make a clear response. Bai Xinyan evaluated. Your current indications are quite similar to Fairchild's shield of truth. He must have blessed you. Near Lo's angels, I've encountered high-ranking squad leaders of the Order of Justice open up territory in the wilderness. All of their cultists, in a 100-meter radius, received the shield of truth blessing. With it, most of them could take on the first attack of a mutant ranked C or below. It is an extremely effective blessing. That's right, one of the effects of the Order's Paladin aura is an increase to defense. Zhang Yingying's mute time was not that long. As an experienced gamer, she soon spoke in gaming terms. However, these buffs are only temporary. Yes, it is temporary. Luo Nan responded plainly, but the facts were not that simple. Yuan felt a bit of an incoming headache when she faced the lack of urgency from these idle chatters. She asked Bai Xinyan directly, "White Salt, report your current location." "I'm 40 meters away from them." "Yup, I see people already." It's as if student Luo Nan's face is glowing. He looks like he's doing great. Bai Xinyan came to a stop as she gazed past the soundproof wall. The room was on the verge of collapse. The lighting was dusky, and a large difference in luminosity was formed with her current location. However, this did not really affect her. She waved her hand in greeting toward the few people within the room. Yuan gave another order. "Everyone in the room, rendezvous with White Salt. Retreat according to the designated route." A clear evacuation route immediately appeared within the encrypted channel. At the same time, the route map also appeared in Officer Zhu's command data link. He was stunned for a moment, but he still issued the route map to his subordinates and asked them to act in accordance with the provided directions. "Move, move, move." Bamboo Pole was now the one who urged everyone on. He continued to be responsible and diligent, and refreshed the encrypted channel with new information. They're just about to finish calibrating their sniper artillery cannon. Its range covers the entirety of Frost River reality. Who knows? The gunner might have a mental hiccup, ignore Fairchild, deviate the muzzle ever so slightly, and provide corpses which only mops can collect. "Screw off, I'm talking to you." Cat Eyes was in a horrible mood. She resisted the malicious impulse to tear Luo Nan's throat to shreds and pushed him hard, indicating that he should leave first. Right now, Luo Nan could sense the intentions behind Cat Eyes' mood. He was not superfluous. He ran a few steps and jumped through the broken soundproof wall and made it outside. He turned back to see Zhu Weilan's subordinates, the special police officers. They were well-trained and experienced. They soon flung away their meaningless state of confusion and followed their training. They withdrew in an orderly fashion and used the available cover, performing their standard tactical maneuvers. Though their actions might not be effective, this is an example of professional ethics, expressed by Xinyan in understanding towards the special police officers. Luo Nan's gaze flitted across the face of this beautiful and laid-back woman. He looked down and murmured in greeting, "Miss Bai, hello, this is the first time we've met. I have somewhat of an understanding of you, student Luo Nan." Bai Xinyan winked at him in a very cordial manner. She looked easy to get along with. However, Luo Nan could not forget the 2-hour assignment in Frost River Waterway she had assigned him earlier today. Needless to say, there was also the burner simulator, the hidden secret of Frost River Waterway. So Luo Nan was wary toward this beautiful lady. It was because of these thoughts that Luo Nan switched his gaze over to the several special police officers' bodies. Each of them still had a projection of the visualization diagram on the chest regions of their exoskeleton armor. It had yet to dissipate. It had to be stated that the visualization diagram was very high profile. If Luo Nan did not revoke it and news of this scene got out, then some people, at least those on Yan Yongbo's side, may take negative actions against him. Luo Nan had already considered whether or not to revoke these diagrams, but then a deafening explosion pierced his ears. The battle between Fairchild and Baze had entered an extremely intense state. Frost River Realities' high-end, immersive experience region rapidly turned into a sheet of ruins. Fairchild had held an unshakable advantage on the material plane so far, but the range of the words of Krait continued to endlessly expand. The words of Krait was far too overpowered. It kept on searching for people to drain from. Even cat eyes had been targeted by it. After some thought, Luo Nan did not revoke his buffs, the visualization diagrams. Instead, he added one more for Zhu Weilun as a precaution. Bai Xinyan observed all of this with great interest and asked, "This skill of yours is like our family's old Bai's bestowed awakening technique. It doesn't just wake the target up. It seems like there's the scent of something high-end integrated in there. This power seems rigorous. Is this a skill from formatting theory? Your family's old Bai." Luo Nan was stupefied for a moment before he realized that Bai Xinyan referred to her father, Mr. Bai. The way she addressed him gave off the impression that this father and daughter pair did not get along. At the same time, Luo Nan very much admired Bai Xinyan's power of insight. Indeed, Luo Nan had utilized the visualization diagram and the tempo of soul breathing to bestow buffs into everyone's bodies. Bai Xinyan had given an extremely appropriate description of his skill. This kind of woman really gave off quite the pressure. As Luo Nan grew unwilling to converse too much with Bai Xinyan, a shriek came out from within the crowd of congregated people. The shriek was sharp and shivery. It was simply a cry that seemed to be from the pain of having one's heart dug out from the chest. Oh, this might not be an exaggeration. The several special police officers who had just evacuated from the room rushed to place down the body they carried. That person had injured his back and was curled up in a ball. His face was warped and his mouth gaped wide, but he was unable to let out any sounds whatsoever. Only tears, snivel, and cold sweat could flow across his face. It was Huang Bingzhen. It was unknown whether this guy was lucky or unfortunate, but in the end, he had been carried out by the special police officers due to their professional ethics. Although Huang Bingzhen was alive, his current appearance made it look like he was better off dead. Bai Xinyan was the only one of the bunch with medical qualifications. She just gave him a quick scan with her eyes and shook her head. The words of Krait. He's already a snake hive, now, and could be said to be a kind of human weapon. Who knows? That first oblatum might be sizing us up right now by using him as a medium. Chapter 110, The Truth Gate, Part 1-2. Translator, Strivon. The night fell with uninterrupted rain. The rain never seemed to stop, and it only grew in intensity. Sticking to the edges of the roof of high rises, fine screens of rain and smoke could be seen. The rain and the smudgy city lights covered everywhere. The eye could see aside from the rooftops themselves. 3 buildings acted as pillars that surrounded Frost River reality. Although their rooftops were still wet and moist, not a drizzle of rain could be seen falling down above one's head. There was an incorporeal screen that divided the rooftops of these 3 buildings from the autumn rain of Xia City. Only 20 or so minutes had passed like this before dozens of people bustled about on each of the rooftops. Some hauled equipment, some drafted diagrams on the floor. They came and went, giving off a sense of extreme urgency. And Weng left the people to their own devices when it came to the deployment. He just stood quietly at the edge of the building. He had a small withered body and wore the robes of an oblatum, even though these clothes did not fit his body. The winds were strong atop this building that was nearly a kilometer in height. Any loose clothing would likely be blown away. Despite the wind, he stood very steadily. The shadow of his hood covered his face, but within his turbid pupils was pierced by a faint light. The light shined upon the interweaving spotlights of the triangular rooftop platform of Frost River reality below. The red and blue lights of the police cars surrounding the area looked like fancy decorations. It was all quite dazzling to the eyes. A tide of people streamed endlessly out from the emergency exits under the blotchy lighting, diffusing all around. They then acted in accordance to the stupid herd mentality and surrounded the outside in a congregated mass. They swarmed endlessly around like a mass of insects blocked off by water. At the base of each and every one of these three high-rises were crowds of people pressing against the glass walls. They used all sorts of filming devices and turned on spectator mode. They took all the emotions of panic, fright, and excitement and magnified them. The emotions transformed into a murky cloud that was hard to see with the naked eye, merging into the autumn rain and the curtain of night. Though Weng's droopy eyelids seemed to cover his eyes, he gazed at the boiling miasmic smoke of opaque emotions with great interest. He gave off a subtle feeling that he could watch the scene unfold for not minutes, but for the entire night and not tire. There was more, though. There was something even more interesting within the murky miasmic cloud. Who knows, that first oblatum might be sizing us up right now by using him as a medium. This dialogue that had occurred inside Frost River reality was transmitted to Weng as clear as day. Weng burst out with laughter. It was just as this young lady had said. Through this snake hive, he had used mental clairvoyance to scan every one of the faces within the room. He focused on sizing up two of them. One was the young jacket-wearing lady who had pointed out the snake hive. The other one was the youngster who had received the shield of truth, blessing from Fairchild. They're both impressive people. His lips wriggled as he made this evaluation. The jacket-wearing young lady possessed impressive insight, knowledge, and experience. The depths of her abilities were hard to guess. He was actually unable to decode the pertaining psychic waves cast via the snake hive. He just knew that she was at least a B rank in terms of combat ability. As for the youngster, he had been scanning and rendering the scene using the snake hive and psychic waves, but before his previous thought could finish, the scene had suddenly turned blurry and distorted. Then it completely collapsed. It was clear. The snake hive that he established had been destroyed. After a moment of brief shock, Weng's shriveled lips split apart to expose a gap that was like a black hole. It was a smile. To be able to interfere with the words of Krait's operation, to not even give up an inch. His soul's strength is impressive. He has ample spirit and he has power. Excellent, excellent. The three buildings were arranged in a triangular formation. As Weng observed and evaluated Luo Nan and Cat Eyes, a person who wore black robes appeared on the rooftops of each of the other two buildings. They stood in the middle of their respective rooftop landing pads. These two also wore the clothing of first oblatums, But they did not dare to be like in Weng. They did not leave their positions to go looking around. Instead, they commanded their surrounding personnel with extreme seriousness. Whether it was the drafting or the transporting of the equipment, they checked the deployment with great care. They needed to ensure that nothing would go wrong. As their arrangements grew all the more ready, the minds of these two first oblatums became more and more uneasy. First oblatums were senior members of the Order. They engaged in the intense study of scholarly knowledge, and they knew about Fairchild quite well. They were naturally able to determine their odds of success in the conflict that would follow. Separated by space, these two chatted for a bit. But in the end, they could not refrain from going to the mental plane. This plane was imperceivable by their subordinates, and they used it to seek guidance from Weng. One of them was in charge of communications. He was the first oblatum just below Weng, first oblatum Zheng. And Weng, we have deployed our troops quite quickly. However, this plan was made quickly. It is far too rushed. It will be hard for it to be fully effective. Though we have our coordinated spell formation, according to our current estimations, the odds of killing Fairchild do not exceed 30%. It is far too dangerous. Why don't we plan some more? And Weng did not respond immediately. He extended two hands that were just muscle, bone, and liver spots. His hands were filled with a sense of age and decay. They were even trembling a bit. His thumbs, which he could not extend straight anymore, parted with his forefingers and touched to form a triangle. He tried to contain all of Frost River reality inside. Why do we need to kill Fairchild? Why do we need to kill Fairchild? And Weng asked once again. You all actually didn't have any doubts from the beginning of the operation until now. Or do you think that Fairchild is our complete enemy just because he has ruined many of our matters over these past 2 years in Xia City? That any operation with him as our target is inevitable and expected. The two first oblatums were a bit flabbergasted. You were the one who mentioned getting rid of Fairchild. Now you are resenting the fact that we have not held suspicions, that we have not spoken up, that we have not wondered what there is to personally gain from all this. Luckily, Zheng had worked with Weng for many years, so he knew Weng's temperament. He responded in the same tone as Weng. Weng, actually we are feeling apprehensive. Fairchild is quite the major character after all. He is the backbone force of the truth side, and he holds the most promise of becoming an extraordinary. If we make a mistake, there will be no holds barred between the secular side and the truth side. This is what we are trying to avoid. The scales have two ends. The two ends just keep their distance. They should not interfere with each other and should mind their own business. And Weng made minute adjustments to the frame of the viewpoint formed from his fingers. He locked onto Fairchild's position. Therefore, Fairchild isn't on the truth side. He is on the extreme side. He is a paranoid executioner. There has never been a place for him in the Order. Zheng felt a jolt run through his heart. So we are going to eliminate him. And Weng's words implied that they were not the only ones demanding to have Fairchild dealt with. There was a more complicated and callous plot going on in the background. However, if things are as you say, we should wait for a better opportunity, for an easier plan. And Weng responded dully, let us talk about the odds. Fairchild is powerful. Any schemes with someone this powerful as a target will not have a probability of success exceeding 50%. We could go into deeper, more detailed planning, but most of it will be down to luck. Today, our luck is good. The terrain, Information, energy, and pretext are all complete. Why not try it? Try it, Zheng Xiaoro laughed bitterly. If we are not successful, I fear that the consequences will be too difficult to bear. There would be endless troubles if this tiger does not die. If they really did infuriate Fairchild and attract his mad vengeance, these first oblatums of the secular side might have to sleep with their eyes opened from then on. One would go crazy under those circumstances. What sort of consequences can there be? And Weng made two light coughs. He turned around and walked slowly towards the spell formation area. Deployment was complete. The gate of truth is about to open. That paranoid madman may still be alive against Baze, but can he afford to be distracted? That's a wrap for this installment. Thank you all for watching and supporting Lord of the Stories. If you enjoyed this tale, please hit the like button, share it, and subscribe for more amazing stories. You can also explore other series updated daily in our playlists. Have a fantastic day and see you in the next episode.